It's 6:45 a.m. Here at the southern end of the Salish Sea, also known as Puget Sound, on the Pacific coast of North America, planet Terra. We've got a lot of stuff to go over today. This is the Immediacy Data Intelligence Report. This covers the period from 3 days out till about the end of the third week. Today is May 6th, 2014. Probably need to mention that. The title of today's report is Pi and Revolution. The pi is going to come in because there's going to be repeated references to pi, metaphorically as, motherhood and apple pie, the kind of call to rally around the flag boys, unity in the motherland, especially here within the American empire, or the empire that's been imposed in our name upon the planet by the bastards who are controlling everything. The reason that this is going to arise is because there's going to be leaks, apparently, over this next month plus of what we can consider civil war or revolution within GUS, the government of the U.S. This definition is that part of the subset of the population of the North American continent, USA, that is involved in working for and supporting the government. I say supporting because there will also be people that are not government employees involved in this. Maybe even corporations. But in any event, it's sort of going to be the breakout of it. Looks to be something akin to, linguistically, akin to the purges in the government in China in the Mao times, or the purges in the government in Russia during Stalin's periods, that kind of thing, something on that order. It's going to be rather nasty. This internal civil war is a breakout temporal marker. It's going to mark, it's not a tipping point, but it's coming really close. It's part of a complex trigger for the tipping point, it looks like. The complex trigger is taking shape now. We're seeing other temporal markers that are falling into place. One of them, a good one, by the way, is this thing that you'll see over the next few weeks called the Peacekeeper app. It's due to go viral. It's a peer-to-peer peacekeeping application. And basically, it's going to, for anybody who would download the app, you might get a call on your app, and it would say you're within X number of miles of someone who's suffering being victimized by crime, and you can get over there and help them. And so this peacekeeping app is a large temporal marker that we've been waiting for. We've seen it forecast from late last year. Not the app per se, but its impact on the social order. The peer-to-peer nature of it is going to just freak out Gus. Gus is just going to go batshit. He's just going to go crazy, and he's going to lose it all over the floor and throw a temper tantrum that the people can do something on their own that not only doesn't involve Gus, but actually ends up policing, or not policing, but policing. Policy. Policing means the enforcement of policy. But this app is going to be able to be used to corral and control the minions of government that get out of hand. And so it's just going to be kind of cool. And we've been waiting for something like this. We didn't discuss it because I didn't want to front load it. I didn't know that it would be an app, to be honest. But I knew that there would be some kind of a grassroots response to the corruption and the criminalization of the police force within this country. Now, bear in mind that in the West Coast, we have the West Coast of the U.S., the Wild Wild West, we have a linguistic trail that goes from peacekeeper through sheriff all the way on up to what is currently now our law enforcement and policy enforcement, policing agencies. Now, if we follow that linguistic trail all the way back, we end up with the idea of the peacekeeper. Peacekeeper doesn't enforce laws. The peacekeeper does just that and keeps the peace. And there's a difference. Peacekeeper does not enforce policy dictated by dictators. There's a difference. So anyway, this is going to be a real interesting time here as we watch this temporal marker take hold and start going around the planet, actually, because it's a big deal here in the heartland of the dying American Empire, but it's also going to be very globally applicable. Anywhere where you've got government out of control or corruption or that kind of crud, and you need a peer-to-peer response on the street to deal with the asshole element, the fascist element, this is the approach to go, is this peer-to-peer approach. Technology is going to triumph in this particular case. We've seen it coming for about 6-8 months now, as I was saying. The impact for this is going to be quite large. It maintains this thread, this meme, that runs as a continuous, discrete whole, growing through the period of time that we are about to enter with the emergence of the discord within the within GUS, within the government U.S., within the American Empire itself, the controlling entity. And so, as all of us small, or not small, but as all of us internal and integral participants of the American Empire inside it, trapped inside it, looking out, are going to have a very good observation seat for what's going to go on, if we're aware, within GUS. And this app, by the way, it's not only going to cause GUS to flip out, it's going to be repeatedly showing up over the next couple of years in various different spots as we go through this transition. One of the major things that it'll show up in is in a mutiny that's going to occur within a subset of GUS, and that is going to be visible within the U.S. and a lot of people that have within the U.S., a lot of the population that have a statist or state uber alles approach, that are not necessarily fascistic at heart, but government supporters, propagandistically trained to support government as their first knee-jerk reaction, that kind of thing. These guys are going to be real shocked. And that'll play out over this year before fall, it looks like. So we've got all this really cool stuff coming down with GUS, and in the meantime, we've got a period some other elements here to discuss real quick. I want to keep these reports short, and so we're just going to hit this as hard as we can and develop it as we go along in the next report. Basically, what I'm ending up having to do is to make time for these reports in the midst of everything else that's going on around here. And this really, I think, is the most appropriate ways to get these. Then if I get questions, I might deal with them in the next report and fill out little details as are necessary. So the next thing up is the Terra entity. We've got a lot of data suggesting that that there's going to be a militarized response to the winds that are going to be developing, the damage from the winds. This is not good language. The way it looks at it, it begs an interpretation of the military having to be brought into the central Mississippi Valley area of the North American continent in order to deal with all the damage from the horrific tornadoes and winds. It goes on further to suggest, now it's on the outside of the short-term data, so it's at this point it's more of a hint rather than a real suggestion, but the data is hinting at a very strong hurricane season also coming and slamming into North America this year. Whether or not that matures, we always get those data hints, and then HAARP is always able to steer the things away or dampen them down or whatever. The weather wars intrude. In this case, though, the tornadoes, the wind damage from that seems pretty clear. It's in the immediacy sets, beginning in the early beginning of the shorter term sets, so within the next month or so. We also are seeing indicators that there's going to be two unusual aspects to this. One of them is the tornadoes occurring in Europe. It looks to be Gibraltar through to maybe Vienna in a weird kind of a diagonal line. And then also the other aspect of this is that in some areas, the U.S., in North America, or in Europe, we're going to have small-scale diaspora, in the sense that damage locally in some regions might be so severe that everybody basically has to move away for a while. No building left standing, sort of a thing. So watch out for that. Take any kind of wind warning anywhere from this point on through to probably 2016 or longer. take any, and by then we'll have started to adapt to new conditions a little bit more, but take any wind warning very, very, very seriously, and react to it whether you think it, really has a chance or not, because these are highly unpredictable and very, very damn scary in terms of what the data shows. I've got a lot of notes here, but we've got a lot of data that goes from the let's call it GUSWAR, or I don't know how to really phrase it. There's a lot of language within GUSWAR, within this structure, that points to the idea of loyalty tests, a la the McCarthy era, and various different loyalty tests within subsets of GUS, testing each other and their people around them. It sounds like a very nasty environment in which to live and work, truly. Everybody paranoid on everybody else around them. It's, like 1984, with all the spies and everything, in a very much enhanced crucible kind of a fashion, where it's all shoved together and internally focused. And basically, this is kind of good for the populace, because they'll be so focused on themselves and their own problems, GUS isn't going to be able to bother us as much. Plus, a lot of the resources are going to have to go towards this internal warfare. The data sets for GUS are not very encouraging. The initial aspects of GUSWAR, loyalty testing, all of this kind of thing, the structure of the what it really seems to be describing, and bear in mind I'm looking at thousands of different words and trying to pick out meaningful references that are cross-connected within each. But basically what it appears to be describing, these are not discrete sentences or anything within our data sets, is a time in which not only will loyalty be tested, but the very structure of government internally will be reorganized, some of it visible, some of it not so. There's a lot of hints that the breakaway civilization is going to be severely impacted, or maybe even impacting, in the sense maybe it's driving a section of this, I don't know. In any event, though, it's describing a situation where layers of management are going to be peeled back in some places, and other areas, new layers of management are going to be put onto places in an attempt to realign the power structure as GUS views power. So you got to bear in mind that's from the government's viewpoint. So you'll have one department claiming that it has control over a particular resource against another department that says no, that's our resource, and they'll be appealing to a higher level of authority internally to government, and it's those kind of discordant antagonistic arrangements or relationships that'll start leaking out that will hint as to what's going on. Plus, all the resignations, firings, reshufflings, reorganizations announced, monies being moved around, all different kinds of weird things will point towards this GUSWAR going on. So just something to be advised. If you're around there, the GUS could act very I don't want to say unnaturally extreme, because they're extremists now at this point anyway, but it's going to get even worse than before, and insane, schizophrenic and psychotic almost in the response, because it'll be, a situation arises with the populace somewhere, hit and run accident, I don't know what, and you got 5 different departments showing up, basically fighting each other for control over the situation. And that's just a sort of like an on-the-ground illustration of what the data suggests is going to be occurring at a high level within federal government. Lots of this stuff is focused on Washington, D.C., and oh, by the way, it does look like maybe the situation will also involve another wave of bankster suicide disease spreading about. It might be contagious, so everybody should pay attention to that. We have stuff on silver and gold suggesting at the moment that silver leading gold is going to be limping along upwards. Okay, and I use the word limping deliberately, simply because the surrounding aspect and attribute sets point to opposition to this, opposition to the rise of gold to a very big extent, opposition to the progress of gold within dollar terms to a huge extent, such that the powers that be are doing everything they can to apply control and restraint to movements in the precious metals. And the good news is that it shows an advance in spite of this, a steady progress upwards, in spite of the opposition. that actually offers also the promise of what could occur if it wasn't manipulated. If things were in a rational market. Government, of course, would be constrained then, and they don't want that. So we've got our GUSWAR, we've got our silver and gold moves up over the next few weeks. That's the thing for the next few weeks, is silver and gold will progress upward. The gold is going to be trailing silver. Silver is showing here as being the leader from this point forward, both up and down, sort of dragging, wag the tail kind of thing, or wag the dog through the tail. And then we've got our Terra issues with the wind and the militarized response, and the potential for diaspora on a small scale, and people end up having to move out. We've got some language showing up now that's relative to the global coastal event again. This language is maturing in mainstream media as well as in the alternative press. Obviously, our global coastal event is a long period event, and it may indeed have initialized, and it is so, or initiated and begun so, but because it's moving so slowly, it's like these long wave earthquakes around here. We just they're not really aware of them, although that we know that they're going on through our sensory apparatus. Well, we have our weather and everything around here telling us that things ain't right and things are shifting. However, now we're getting a lot of information about the potential for impact on global coast from various different water sources. There's a lot of, some of it I know to be the global warming hype. We have but here's the thing, even in an ice age, you're going to have rising sea levels, simply because of the way in which the whole system is interrelated. In just an ice age, you're going to have rising sea levels for some period of time as water goes through the cycle that eventually then locks it up ever increasingly into glaciers, which results in decreasing sea levels. But we also have a new intrusion here, and that it's not merely weather we're dealing with. We're also dealing with the expansion of the planet. As the planet expands, we can expect that undersea activity, new lands being formed, will put obstacles to water in many different ways, both in terms of currents causing entirely new weather patterns, but also in terms of shoving the water up. And so we'll get some intrusion to some level unexpectedly and unpredictably. We won't be able to predict this. It'll just happen. There'll be a couple of volcanoes, there may be a few thousand of them, that'll just all go off. And then the next thing you know, whoosh, we've got a foot rise in sea level because of the new lands pushing the ocean up. So that's about it, I guess. And a small bit of housekeeping here. We appreciate the donations, but if you're on a fixed income, if you're getting money from Social Security, that kind of stuff, you need that money much more than we do. My guy Igor, he actually has a pension from the military, albeit a small one. He's got another job, so he's not really desperate. I'm in a position to be able to take consulting work and this kind of thing. So again, I'm not that desperate for that. We do need funds to keep the WebBot report stuff going. But it's not so critical that we need to take Social Security money from you. So I really appreciate it. But in the future, send us the energy instead. Keep us in your good thoughts. Don't curse us out too much. That kind of energy really does pay off for us. And if you're listening to this and you've got a minute, do a search for Jose Arguelles' article. I believe it's called "The Game of Loss and Lack." And it's a really crystalline nature description of my view on the energy. We need the dollars occasionally, but Universe will provide that for us. But we always need the energy to keep moving and to be supported here. So, dollars are fine, and I appreciate them very much. But in the future, you may do us far more good just by being, a really good buddy and thinking, oh yeah, hey, there's another report. I'm really excited. And subscribing to us on YouTube, and we'll figure out some way to make money off that in the future. We've got other projects going. I'm trying to hustle up some bucks for a 3D printer here, so that I can. I've got some really cool inventions that I'm basing off of combined work of what I'm calling the two Victors. Two guys named Victor, separated by I think about 85 years, but in any event. So, you know, we've got we've got stuff going on, and things are going to get really, really, really tough. So I was just talking to some people yesterday about it. They're recognizing it as well. And our plan is that, you know, in 2 years, global famine could be a real buzzkill. Global famine could be a real day destroyer. So, you know, we may all have a bad day in a couple of years relative to food. So I'd feel a lot better knowing that someone sent me a kind note and kept their donation and used it, you know, to put in some tomato plants or, you know, grow some squash or something along those lines. Because it actually, the way I look at it, the reason I do these reports is to give everybody a heads up so that they're all not freaked out when this stuff does occur, but also because it ripples back on me in the sense that, you know, the less people running around absolutely flying rodent excrement crazy, the easier it is for me to conduct daily business. So it's entirely selfish, people. I just want to have a nice, happy, educated population around me that's well aware of what the hell's going on, just so that I have an easier day of it. So, see, it's all very, very, very selfish. You know, so I do benefit from it at that level. But we really do appreciate the donations. The bandwidth costs are horrific, but Universe will provide one way or another. I got people offering me contracts. I can do those, that kind of thing. So we'll work it out. And if it's Social Security money, you know,